Alright, if you made it this far, congratulations. You're getting ready to have a 4K camera setup that looks extremely similar to this. Now yours will look slightly different because you'll be streaming versus having it recorded directly onto your camera, but I'm going to walk you through the full setup from opening up your box, what's in it, and then setting it up so that you'll be able to stream directly into your computer. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is walk through exactly what's inside of your box, what's included in your kit, so you know exactly how you need to set up your camera for your recording session. So, right out of the box, you got two long bags. These are your tripods, one for your camera and one for your light, but consider that optional. If you already have good lighting coming in to wherever your recording setup is, you may not necessarily need the light, but we include it just in case you want to supplement the natural light that you already have coming inside of your recording area. The second thing that I want you to take note of is this box. Now this box will have your camera, your lens, and the attachment that's going to go onto your tripod. Now I'll walk you through each of those when we get to that point when it's more pertinent. And the last thing that you'll note is a bag. This will have all of the essential cords and adapters that you'll need in order to take the feed coming directly from your Sony camera into the computer where your streaming will take place. Alright, first step, getting your camera situated. So included in your kit is a tripod that looks like this. Now it's folded so it's easier to ship, but what you'll want to do is pull these arms down just like this. They'll snap into place. But if you get one that's not exactly where you want it, just pull down on this red tab here, and that will allow you to adjust it to the exact height that you want. Once those legs lock into place, now you want to set that on the floor, and our adapter is going to go right on top of this tripod here. Next thing we want to do is take this newer leveler, and you'll notice a couple of parts here. First thing that we want to do is unscrew this plate. You're going to remove that and set that to the side because this is what's going to attach to your camera that'll attach to your tripod. So once we set that to the side, let's take that ball head, and now we're going to screw that directly onto our tripod. Alright, so once that's nice and snug, just extend that up so it's in a comfortable position. The next thing that we're going to do is mount that plate to your camera and set that camera directly on top of your tripod. You'll notice a couple things on your camera. You'll see a screw hole directly on the bottom, and if you look at your plate, you'll also see a screw, a male piece of the screw that'll fit directly on there. So we want to attach that to the camera like this, just screwing it at the bottom. But one thing that you want to know is that you want that plate to be perpendicular to the base of the camera. So once you get your leveling set, we're just going to tighten that up just like that. Alright, that's nice and snug, and your camera should look something like this. Alright, so once you confirm your camera looks like that, the next thing we want to do is see what that looks like mounted on top of your tripod. So we're just going to do a couple of adjustments to make sure this one is straight, and then we're going to throw that on there. So you'll notice that should look something like that. I'll move out of the way so I can focus on the camera. And we'll get that straight in a second, but the first thing we want to do is tighten this up so that that doesn't move. So now we shouldn't be able to slide our camera in and out, but now we have some movement here, which is fine. We'll use these screws in order to tighten up and loosen the positioning of our camera. Now our camera is relatively fixed, which is good. Once you get it set up and plugged in, you'll want to use these adjustments to adjust the angle of your camera up and down so that it fixes directly on you just the way that you want it. One more thing to call out, is there's one more screw on the back here. This screw is helpful if once your tripod is set up and you want to swivel your camera, that screw is helpful. So once you've got your positioning in place, you can tighten that back up so that won't screw anymore either. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is to mount the camera lens onto the camera. So if you'll notice, you've got a cap on both ends. First thing we're going to do is take those caps off. And what you want to do is find this white dot on the side of your lens. You'll find a similar dot that you'll also get on your camera, if I can get that in. So you're going to find that same dot, and what you're going to try to do is to get those to align just like that. And then once that's nice and snug, you're going to twist it until you hear a snap. All right, that's nice and snug, that's not going anywhere. And now your camera is ready to be mounted on your tripod. Now, one thing to call out right before we do that, you'll also notice a switch on the side of your lens. One says AF and one says MF. We're just going to triple check before we get it on our mount that it's set to AF. All right, the next thing we want to do, mount that camera, tighten it up. And then the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to connect those cables that we called out right here. We want to unscrew those. And now the next thing we want to do is, if you turn your camera to the side, you'll see a panel, multiple panels. So we'll just screw a couple of those off just to make a couple of call outs here. So the first thing that you'll notice is this opening here, and it should say HDMI. You want to take the small end of that HDMI mini that's going to go into your camera. The other end of our HDMI cord is going to go into what we call this HDMI capture card. Now, this is mandatory. You do need to use this in order to make your feed work well. The next thing that we're going to do is take that same cord and stick that here into the adapter. Now, this is only helpful or necessary if you have a Mac. So this is the USB-C that goes into a Mac. If you've got a PC and you don't need it, you can directly use that USB input into your computer. The biggest thing that you want to make sure is, even though the HDMI is coming out of the camera and you may have an HDMI input onto your computer, it has to go through that capture card in order to capture the feed from the camera, and then we plug this into the computer. All right, now that we've got the basics situated for your camera, let's set that to the side, and then we'll talk about lighting just for a second. Included in your box, you'll see a newer box, and this will have your panel light. So we'll open that up just to take a look at exactly what that looks like, and then you can make the best decision on whether or not you want to use that as a part of your recording. So it is a pretty bright light, and one of the things that you'll notice on the back is you'll have multiple switches. One will be used to adjust your regular lighting up and down, and the other one will be used to bring in some color. So sometimes you'll have a really flat lighting because of the lighting in your area or the lighting in your home when you're recording, but adjust those two knobs to get the exact picture that you're looking for. Between this light and the light that we'll get into directly from your camera, some of the settings that I'll show you in a second, you should be able to get optimum lighting for your recording no matter what. All right, the next thing that we want to do is talk about sound. Now, because you have the feed already coming into your camera, you may not necessarily have the need or feel it's a necessity to use the lavalier mic. We certainly recommend it because it gives you the most unified sound experience. And if you adjust the distance between you and your recording device, most times, which will be your computer, having a lavalier mic will guarantee that that sound quality is consistent. So I'll walk you through on how to set that up. It's extremely simplistic. So the first thing that we're going to note is 2 Rode microphones. So what we want to do is identify those buttons on the bottom side, and those are the buttons that we're going to press and hold until it lights up. All right, perfect. So now we should see this one light up blue with those 2 LED lights here. And this one, we should start to see that microphone leveling go up and down as I speak. That means the mic is live, and that means the 2 of these are synced. This one in my left hand is the actual microphone. So this is the transmitter. This is the receiver. This is gonna pick up any audio. So this is the one that we want to connect to our computer, and this is the one that we want to plug in the lavalier microphone to connect to our body. When we talk into that, it'll automatically transition that sound into this one and sync it up with the video feed that we're giving into the computer. So in order to make that happen, what we want to do is take that device that's going into the computer, and we're just going to plug up that auxiliary connector here. It should look something like that. And most oftentimes, the auxiliary input that you have on your computer is actually used for microphones. So you're going to want to use that for sound, but not necessarily as your microphone input. So included in your kit is this adapter here. And this adapter is used to take that auxiliary that will plug into the red input and then output that either into a USB, or included in your kit is an adapter, a USB-C, if you have a Mac. So we're just gonna plug this auxiliary into that red opening, and either one of those is gonna go into your computer. Once you do that, you're done. Now we just have to tell the computer that we've plugged up that microphone and switch our microphone from the standard setting of your computer to the microphone that we just plugged in. And then we're gonna hook up the lavalier to the transmitter to make sure we sound good as well. Just as you can imagine, that's pretty easy as well. We're just gonna find the microphone input. Rode makes it easy, and they actually put a microphone symbol right where you need to stick that in. So we're just gonna stick that in right there. And now if we speak into this, we should pick that up on the receiver, on the receiving end of that Rode wireless system. All right, let's talk about your camera settings. First thing that we want to note is this white tick mark here. That's going to tell us exactly what settings that we have. So we want to make sure ours is set to manual. That way we'll get the exact lighting adjustments that we want. The other thing that we just want to make sure this dial is also set to 0. And then I also want to point out the on and off switch, which is right here. And we won't see it here, but there's also a wheel that we're also gonna adjust. I just wanna point it out to you because we'll end up using that in a second. But as soon as you're ready, let's make sure that's set to on. This is the shutter, just in case we need it, and I call that out later. And we just wanna make sure that, again, our camera is set to manual. All right, now we wanna make a couple of last second adjustments that are gonna make a dramatic input as it relates to our feed. So I'll take the lens cap off so you can actually see what those adjustments will do real time. So the first thing I want you to do is, we called out that knob on the front. It's just a little wheel, but once we start turning that, you're gonna notice this red F symbol come up. That's extremely important because we want to turn that all the way to 1.8 until it stops there. The next thing that we want to do, although it looks extremely bright, we're going to take care of that right now. If you look at this wheel here, this wheel can either turn or you can press it. So we're just going to press that to the right. And as soon as you press that, you should see ISO come up on your camera. And then we're just gonna adjust the light settings in order for that to look exactly the way that we want. So you can see what that does to our image. That'll adjust it up, that'll adjust it down, but we'll want to get that to the ISO setting that we want, so when you stand in front of the camera, you actually look good. All right, and then the last area that I want to familiarize you with is this menu button. So if we click menu there, it'll automatically pop up. And at the top, we'll have multiple settings that we can swap through. We mostly care about this first one, the main one. And then once you tab down, you'll be able to select different pages within the sub menu. So we're gonna navigate to page 5 of 14 at the top. And we wanna make that first selection, which says continuous autofocus. So this is our focus mode. If you just flip through those, we want AF-C. That's gonna make sure it locks onto you whenever you make changes. And then the next thing we're gonna do is tab over 2 more times. This pre-AF, we wanna set that to on. And then the last thing that we're gonna do is keep tabbing over until we get to this suitcase. This should already be set on yours, but in the event that is not, we're going to click HDMI settings and make sure HDMI display is turned off.